Hey all, this is Fox TCG here, with the introduction to the new hero that is going to be released in Heavy Hitters, Kassai of the Golden Sands. Kassai is a warrior class hero, who has a passive that says, if you draw a card this turn, your sword attacks cost 1 resource less, as well as an action that says, banish 2 red cards and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard. If you do, your sword attacks gain, if it sets a hero this turn, create a gold token. As we can see from her hero ability, we probably want to be running swords. And her signature weapons, the one-handed Centauri sabers, are her most reliable set of weapons for her. The Centauri sabers say, pay 1 resource, attack for 2. If this is being blocked by an attack action, this gains +1 for the entire turn. Kassai's hero ability also tells us we want to draw a lot of cards, which her secondary active ability incentivizes us to do. A mix of attacking with Centauri sabers, or another weapon that has a positive effect for us when blocked with an attack action, and her passive gold generation to give us an outlet to draw a card, creates the core idea of the deck. Taking a look at Kassai's equipment suite, we see that a lot of Warrior's equipment incentivizes us to be swinging constantly and to be hitting with our attacks. Warrior, for their chess options, has the Courage of Bladehold, which can be destroyed as an action to make all of our sword swings free, letting us have a powerful turn without worrying about paying for our sword attacks. Importantly, the Courage of Bladehold blocks for 2 with Temper, meaning that we can block with it twice before it breaks. First time blocking for 2, and the second one for 1 before it breaks. Alternatively, we have the new legendary we are getting in Heavy Hitters, the Grains of Bloodspill. The Grains of Bloodspill has a triggered ability that says, whenever you hit with a weapon attack, you may pay 1 resource. If you do, create a Vigor token. Importantly, just like the Courage of Bladehold, the Grains of Bloodspill sports a 2 block with Temper, meaning it can block the first time for 2, then the second time you block, it'll block for 1 before it breaks. The Grains of Bloodspill finds its value in turns where you've drawn a lot of cards through cards like Cash In, and find yourself with an extra blue that you can't find to use the energy with. Using the Grains of Bloodspill, you can use the energy that will be gained from that blue and transfer it to the next turn using Vigor tokens, meaning your next turn doesn't have to worry as much about resource requirements to fuel your entire turn. Looking at other chest options, we find the always reliable Fiendal Spring Tunic. Fiendal Spring Tunic gains an energy counter every turn until after 3 turns, you can activate it at instant speed to gain 1 resource. Fiendal Spring Tunic is amazing in games where games go long and tedious, and gaining 1 extra resource for no extra cost is extremely valuable. Compared to the other 2, however, Fiendal Spring Tunic only blocks for 1 with Blade Break, so as soon as you block with it, it's destroyed, so it doesn't have as much defensive value as the other 2 chest pieces. Moving on to the arms section, you have 2 primary choices for your arm slot. The first one being Braveforge Bracers. This is a legendary warrior arms piece that says, as an action, pay a resource. Your next weapon attack gains +1 this turn. Only activate this if you hit with a weapon this turn. What's important about Braveforge Bracers is that it blocks for 2 with Battle Worn, which means even if you block with it, it'll go to 0 defense, it'll never break. Which means you can block with it in the early game and not worry about it breaking due to Temper, and it being always a piece on the board throughout the entire game. Alternatively, you have the Ironsong Versus. This warrior arms piece says, as an action, pay 1 resource. Your next weapon attack this turn gains, it says when hit a hero, create a courage token. What makes this different from Braveforge Bracers is that you can activate Versus on either the first or second swing, and it has no prerequisite requirement for activating it, but you're not guaranteed anything for activating Ironsong Versus. Ironsong Versus also has a 2 block with Temper instead of Battle Worn, making it harder to block with compared to Braveforge Bracers. Moving to our headpieces, there's 2 primary headpieces Kassai players are using right now. The first one being Crown of Dominion, which is a no-block generic headpiece that says, your hero is royal. When you equip Crown Dominion, create a gold token. Kassai doesn't use the royal keyword like other heroes do, but creating a gold token to start the game off lets you be aggressive right out of the gates. Instead of having to wait to create your first gold token, it lets you play cards like Cash In immediately, and other cards that care about gold tokens. The only downside about this headpiece is that it doesn't block at all, but what you trade in block value, you trade in for future aggression with the gold token you create at the start of the game. Alternatively, you have the Crown of Providence, which sees play in almost every Flesh and Blood deck ever created. The Crown of Providence is a 2-block Blade Break generic headpiece that says, when you block with the Crown of Providence, you may put a card from your hand or arsenal onto the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw a card. Where this is different from Crown of Dominion is that you get defensive value from Crown of Providence instead of offensive value from Crown of Dominion, and it saves your arsenal from being destroyed from card effects like Command and Conquer. Overall, it's a more defensive headpiece compared to Crown Dominion's more offensive role, but both are good nonetheless. Finally, moving on to our boots section, you have one of the strongest boots in the game, Valiant Dynamos. Valiant Dynamos is a battle-worn block 1 boot, but if you swing twice with your weapon, you get to remove a -1 counter from your Valiant Dynamos. Valiant Dynamos proves instrumental in our strategy of swinging with our one-hand weapons, with the bonus reward of 1 block with our Valiant Dynamos every turn, meaning that we should be taking blocks with our Valiant Dynamos almost every turn cycle, giving us more of a long-term presence throughout the game. Moving away from our equipment onto the main deck, Kassai's cards can be broken down into 4 subcategories, those being a Go Again enabler, a pump card, a power card, or a defensive card. Go Again enablers is what makes the deck run. Since we want to be swinging twice in a turn, we want to have Go Again enablers in all of our hands. For example, Blade Runner Red is the perfect idea of this. It gives your current swing Go Again while buffing your second swing by 3, meaning that we can attack twice with our weapon and remove a -1 counter from our dynamos at the end of the turn. Pump cards offer us additional damage in either the reaction step or action step. Pump cards' primary purpose is to make our opponent's lives difficult by helping push extra damage or make on-hits even more tricky to deal with. For example, Slice and Dice Red is a 0-cost action that says, when you attack with a sword or dagger this turn, your first weapon attack gains +1, and the second one gains +3. The damage offered by Slice and Dice makes our opponent's lives difficult, and helps push through any on-hits that we might send during the turn, like Kassai's hero ability, for example. Power cards are cards that make our turn superpowered in some way, but in exchange, usually require some sort of input from either our gold or copper supply. As an example, Cash-In lets us draw 2 cards, but it requires an input cost of either 1 gold, 4 copper, or 4 resources from us. But Cash-In lets us have our Kassai passive online, while giving us 2 cards in return for our investment. Finally, defensive cards are cards like Sink Below and other defensive reactions. Cards that primary purpose is to be blocked with. These aren't as important as the other 3 for the deck, but they're still important to note nonetheless, and should be an important part of any Kassai deck. Kassai has 2 primary finishers in her deck. Finishers are cards that push Kassai so ahead on board state, the turn she plays them, she's instantly in a great position to push to the end of the game, but they require a good amount of investment of resources to. Her first finisher is called Blood on Her Hands. Released in Everfest, it's a yellow warrior action that costs 0. It says, when you play this, you may destroy any number of copper tokens you control. Choose a mode for each copper display. You may choose each mode twice. Those modes being one-hand weapons gain +1, Go Again, or a second swing this turn. If you manage to stockpile 5 or even 6 copper through cards like Spoils of War or High Striker, and combine with Kassai's passive to make her swords attack free, this card absolutely dominates the table as full power, allowing you to take victory due to the sheer tempo shift that this card provides. Your alternative finisher is Kassai's other specialization, that being released in heavy hitters, Raise an Army. Raise an Army is a 0-cost yellow warrior action that says, as an additional cost in playing Raise an Army, destroy X gold tokens you control. Create X Centauri Sellsword tokens. Centauri Sellsword tokens are 3 attack, 2 life allies that can only attack if you've attacked with a weapon this turn. They also cost 1 resource to activate. Raise an Army is certainly the harder of the 2 finishers to resolve. But versus heroes who struggle dealing with allies, it's certainly a huge tempo swing to your favor, now they have to deal with you and all the Sellsword tokens you just created to push extra damage. Let's dive into an actual game to see how she works. As a treat for you all, I have a Kassai vs Reinhardt game. My opponent decided that I will go first. Moving to sideboarding here, I put in my commanding performances, Iron Song responses, Money Mows, and Sink Blows. I'm thinking he'll be blocking a lot, and the sync blows will be helpful for Intimidate. Money Mouth is just to push additional on hits, and to make sure he is incentivized to block more. On our turn 0 hand, we see an amazing hand. High Striker lets us get 4 copper right away if we hit, a blue pitch to field the entire turn, Bleed Runner as our Go Again enabler, and Iron Song response for our pump. So we pitch to blue for our first swing, threatening 4 copper on hit for the entire turn. We react with Blade Runner for our Go Again. Then our opponent lets the second swing hit, letting us arsenal our Iron Song response and gain 4 copper. The next turn, we also see an amazing hand, this time for a different reason. We get to use one of our finishers this turn, Blood on Her Hand, for a heavy tempo swing. A pack hunt starts the turn for 6 skill again with Intimidate. We give them a yellow run through to get into the graveyard for later, since we don't need 2 go again enablers, as well as our Valiant Dynamos to remove the -1 counter on our end step after we swing. The Bear Fangs that follow hurts, but we can eat the damage. At the start of our turn, we can start off with the Action Pump, Slice and Dice, followed by a Gold Crack for free Sword Swings. Then Blood on Our Hands. I choose the wrong modes here for maximum value with 4 copper. What I should have chosen is +2 twice, Go Again, and Swing twice on the same weapon, but that's past me's mistake. But all of our Sword Swings have Go Again and can swing twice this turn, threatening 8 damage on its own. Shift the Tide of Battle just gives us an agility token for our next turn, which is a worthy reward. Our Granted Blood Spill also gives us a Vigor token for having the troubles of having an extra unusable resource. Thanks to the agility token we made last turn, on our next turn we draw one of our Sync Belows, and no good Go Again enabler, but we don't need one this turn because we have an agility token to instead substitute. But on the pack hunt our opponent throws, we can give them our Valiant Dynamos and play Sync Below, seeking away our worthless, and find a much better card in this situation, in the swing. We can use the blue hit and run as a pitch thanks to the agility giving our Sword Swing Go Again. Activating Kassai as well to incentivize our opponent to block, so we can use the 2 Iron Song responses in arsenal in hand. The hit and run will be used as grain fodder for our Vigor token for next turn as we swing again, and get our into swing in the arsenal for future use next turn. The next turn we see is a dream hand for Kassai. 2 pumps, a Go Again enabler, and a blue pitch. Our opponent just throws a 3 for 6. We can just give our Valiant Dynamos and just say good day, sir. After that, they just end their turn and allows us to play a dream hand. Activating Kassai makes this hand a lot better since we'll have it on hit for the entire turn. We'll swing our first swing, then play Blade Flurry and Blade Runner in the reaction step. Unfortunately, we do get their defense reaction in the first swing, but that's what we want from them, because after that, we can play Money Mouth and gamble on it with its next swing, coming in for 9 with 2 gold on it for us, with an into swing in the arsenal. Our opponent will try to block exactly 10, but to their surprise, we come in with into swing and get our 2 gold. After that, we see a blue heavy hand, but we do draw a cash in that will allow us to supercharge our turn. Unfortunately for us, we see a swing big, which we block with our Valiant Dynamos and take an unfortunate amount of damage. But we have a good enough turn to swing back with to justify all the damage we're going to take here. On our turn, we can play the cash in and draw 2 cards. We see a Command of Performance, which we can play immediately, giving all our attacks this turn a non-block trigger. Then activating Kassai's hero ability gives a catch-22 to our opponent. We also have a sink below to potentially arsenal this turn. Our opponent gives a Scowling Flesh Bag, but fortunately for us, they intimidate the wrong card. We can play our Go Again enabler, Tide Shift, and arsenal a sink below with 2 Vigor tokens and an Agility after our attacks hit. Since we have 2 Vigor tokens and an Agility, we can just be happy blocking most of this Blood Rush spell's turn and try to preserve some life. Thankfully, due to the 2 Vigor tokens and the Agility token, we're all set for our next turn and don't need too many cards to play our next turn out with. All we need is 0 cost pumps, which got intimidated, but we're probably not going to block with that in the first place. We also try to play Sink Below and try to sink away this useless yellow, but we find a pretty good card in Blade Runner, so it's all worth it. On our turn, using the 2 Vigor tokens, we can spend the 2 resources we get to crack our gold token. We do find a blue, but we're fine with that. Our action pump in red slice and dice, as well as our Kassai active ability, and since we don't need to worry about Go Again, we can just crack our Iron Song verses and try to go to down. Unfortunately, our opponent blocks out the entire turn, but we're currently fine with this. It gives us room to take back tempo from their Blood Rush Battle's turn. The next turn comes, and they just throw a runner. So we block with our Valiant Dynamos and an extra blue we don't need in our hand. After that, they just pass the turn to us. On our turn, we can crack a gold token to try to find something to end the game with here. The first draw we see is another blue, so we go back to fishing and crack our second gold token, which finds us a Spoils of War, which combined with a Blade Rod and an Arsenal for next turn is more than enough to steal enough tempo and try to earn enough momentum to end the game with. Next turn, we can give our opponent armor and a Go Again enabler on their Bear Fangs that we don't need to try to stay out of their Reckless Swing range. After that, they pass the turn. Thanks to our Vigor token, we can play this next turn off of just 1 yellow pitch card. And thanks to Blade Flurry, our opponent's lives are made difficult and they go down to 2 life. After our first swing, they dedicate themselves to try to block out the second swing, but we already have enough momentum to end the game with. On our next turn, after we crack our gold token, we find a cash-in, and we can decide between cracking the cash-in or cracking Blood in Our Hands. I choose Blood in Our Hands for the guaranteed win, since we already have 3 sword swings for the entire turn. And I choose the correct bows this time for maximum value, being +2 twice, Go Again, and can swing twice with the weapon this turn, all on the same weapon. And after that, it's enough damage to end the game after a Money Mouth on the second swing, just to force enough damage to end the game. The updated deck list will be in the description. I hope you have a wonderful day.